So, the third topic in this discussion is going to be technics or technology. I'm going to start off with what is technology and especially specifically what is technics and why would you differentiate between technics and technology?
I think in English you have to make a distinction between technology and what the German means by Technik. Insofar as technology is probably in the vernacular mostly concerned with the technological tools, but of course I know also with methods. But when we speak of purely in terms of, say, Heidegger's question after technics, or the question concerning technology as the official title goes, then what he's asking for, as he says himself, is not the tools, but instead, as it's usually translated, the essence of technology. But I translate this as the realm of technics. So Wesen becomes realm, not essence, because he's not asking what is technology in its essence and in and for itself, as a metaphysical question would be.
Okay.
So he doesn't give a definition in a strict sense what an essence is. It would require again it's in a specification. He doesn't do that at all. So he doesn't try to group together the microphone, the phone, the light, the car, the plane, all in one, but instead he tries to see what Gestell, so in framing or positionality in English, what it is that how it lets beings appear, namely as Bestand, as a standing resource.
Or nowadays you could say as data.
Yeah, this is going beyond Heidegger. Now it's data and informational value.
Right. Okay. So, if you say the realm of technics, which, realm could be also understood as Reich in German in a way, would you say that it has to do with this sort of almost now planetary growth and encroachment, that this is kind of something that's carried with the sense of the word realm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then, is it correct to say that this is a sort of characterization of technics as being something, as being a holistic kind of structure, entity, whatever you want to call it, or realm, rather than, as you just said, focusing on the microphone, on the hammer, on the whatever? It is more seeing it as a sort of whole, or as a sort of grander picture. Is that correct?
Well, not a whole, not holistic, because it crowds out a lot, right? So it's totalizing. It's totalitarian.
Okay, totalitarian, but not holistic. Can you explain how that works?
Well, totalitarian is completely different, right?
Okay.
We wouldn't call the totalitarian system a holistic system.
Okay, well, but it has holistic intentions, wouldn't it? A totalitarian system wouldn't.
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't. So, for example, because Gestell does not let. So holistic means, in medicine, for example, we look at the human being and that specific human being, and wait and see what it is that gives to sense, what makes sense according to him or her. But totalitarian looks at sort of encircles in such a way that something needs to give. So it needs to. It's challenged to the totalitarian system in politics. Political totalitarian system, for example, demands a certain result.
Okay.
And demands that yes, it concerns, for example, an entire nation or so. Yes. But that's not holistic at all, because it doesn't see what could be there also that is outside of its framing.
Okay, so maybe put bluntly, you could say it's like holistic is looking at it as a whole, and totalitarian would be subjugating the whole to a particular, in a way.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah? Are you happy with this? Does that work for you? So, what I was saying is there has been other, let's say, non-Heideggerian approaches, even approaches of, let's say, naive, non-philosophical sciences trying to characterize the scientific system as a like total system. And there's been people like Winner, and there's been people like Kevin Kelly, who regard Technics as something that has been co-evolving with humanity from the beginning of evolution, or at least from the beginning of human evolution, and that human intelligence is actually a sort of product of the symbiotic co-evolution of Technics and humans. And so, for example, trying to string connections here from that kind of view, you have people like Richard Dawkins, who talk of the extended phenotype, and birds build nests and beavers build dams, and perhaps humans bring forward Technics, but Technics, as it's not completed yet in that sense, we don't know the holistic image of that nest or dam. We just got this like ever increasing, ever developing system right now. But the question arises here now, is it something we have brought forward at all in this view, or is it something that has brought us forward, or is it somehow this weird entanglement, this weird symbiotic entanglement?
I wouldn't say entanglement. I would say there's and that's something I'm not. So what I'm not sure about is whether there isn't something utterly alien about some of the technologies of today, but that's maybe for a different time to discuss. So there's nothing wrong. Let's say purely with Heidegger, there's nothing wrong with Gestell, or with technological tools or so. But there's something specific that happens in the sense that Gestell all of a sudden takes over and becomes the only way of disclosing the world.
And that entails the highest danger?
And that's, well, you could say that this is, the highest danger is that withdrawal withdraws. So that sounds, it is for someone like Heidegger, it's the non-available, that which doesn't make itself readily available for use, that gives rise to sense. And in Gestell, all becomes sort of pre-formed, pre-given, but what withdraws or conceals itself is ultimately concealment itself. So the issue, I think, with analogies to the animal kingdom is that they are a bit simplistic. You know, there is a striking difference between building a dam and a nuclear bomb.
Yes.
and not to see and even a hammer. You know, a dam isn't the tool that can be used to drive a nail into a timber or to smash someone's head in. The tools that human beings use are often also tools of war and warcraft. That's something we don't really see with animals at all.
Maybe chimpanzees or something, but
yeah,
I suppose that you have to find these,
but not specifically made, you know.
Right.
And that's something that's there also. Let's almost say, you know, whatever evolutionary story, but that's there from the beginning. Very often, and I'm not a historian of technological development, but very often the biggest leaps are made in terms of warfare.
Right.
And that's completely not the case with animals or so. And even there, we have to be very careful that we don't anthropomorphize animals. But I think to come back to your actual question, which is crucial. I think the way perhaps that we can describe this in a way that's accessible is that human beings are multidimensional. And one of the dimensions is the dimension of what the Greeks called Techni. We get the word technics, technology from. And Techni means art, craft, and also what we would just translate it maybe as disclosing something or bringing forth, producing, production. It is connected in that sense, to comment this from Heidegger again, with poiesis, so also again a form of bringing forth, a working with, and for example shaping a stone to have a certain form is somewhere in between poiesis and techne, and the bringing forth is what the human being requires from the. So it's maybe we can put it like this: the human being is touched or taken by this dimension. What happens though, for some reason, in modernity, is that this dimension becomes almost or seemingly or wants to be exclusive. So it's the dominant form of disclosing.
So if you take terms from systems theory, you could say the cybernetic system of technology has kind of incorporated humanity into its mechanism of autopoiesis, into its mechanism of self-perpetuating by kind of increasingly turning the human into a cog within that network.
Yeah, but it's not an orderly network. The word cybernetics, as mentioned 2 episodes before, it means the steerman, a captain on a ship, someone who steers a ship, and a ship usually ends up in some sort of storm or tempest and bad weather, and that could go in any direction. So the cybernetic system isn't one of neat, perfect control. Signals can be, they can take a wrong direction. They can actually spread. They're not perfectly. They don't go from A to B. So it's an extremely chaotic system, if you like, and in some sense, again, to come back to this weird statement from before, to lean into this weird and see this for what it is, and that's something that, what does Heraclitus say? He says, it's the flesh that steers. Right? So there is something peculiar about this so-called cybernetic system, in that it makes almost visible what some of the thinkers from old saw. The flesh is the signal. The flesh flashes, and as it simply flashes for no reason, it leads to, it spreads out and generates, mania over here that all of a sudden ebbs down again. I mean, we can see this on so-called social media. All of a sudden, this is the thing, and then it dies down again. No one knows what happened.
Right. Okay, but the question, that actually leads well into my last question, which is there such a thing as the ultimate flash? Like, there's always
Yes.
this ideology surrounding technology, especially in transhumanism and etc. That there's something we're approaching. They would call the singularity, either the singularity, but even if you don't believe in the singularity per se, people would still say they believe in that the technological system is accelerating, or they believe that it is progressing, that we have technological progress. That's a very common theme, meme, whatever you want to call it. And the thing is, whenever you say you're accelerating and whenever you say you're progressing, you kind of need to have some hint of what you are progressing towards or what you are accelerating towards. Otherwise, you can't really say you're progressing. Otherwise, you're just moving.
Or acceleration, drifting. Getting faster. Okay, but in relation to what?
Yeah, in relation to what? So this anchor point is often put where there is this certain point where it's like it can't go on like this. So there is a point where this entire acceleration will either run against the wall in a massive catastrophe, or it will be the liberation of humanity from its physical body, however it's interpreted.
That is a catastrophe.
Well, okay, but I mean, however it's interpreted, whether in positive terms, negative terms, there is this sense that there is some sort of event, and I see that even in when Heidegger uses words like Ereignis. I know he doesn't mean specifically we're gonna have the singularity in 5 years. He may have not meant it in that way, but what is this event what is your understanding of this potential event? Is it going to be something like the flash of flashes in this system?
It can mean fortgeschritten, can mean to be very far advanced, but it can also mean to be very far removed from the source or from origin.
Right. Yeah.
So what I think this very trendy talk of acceleration, and it gets at something that's not not entirely irrelevant, but I think what we can notice is that there's never any time left. Right? There's always so either it's right around the corner, this massive collapse, or there's just no time left. We have to act now. What really this indicates is that we're losing a relationship with time, and that has to do with mortality, with the disappearance of death, and I would say so. But I think your question is more to do with the ereignis. See, the ereignis is not an event, and Heidegger is at pains to say that it's not an event. He actually says it explicitly. He actually, towards the end of his life, he will say that l'appropriation in French is much better as a translation. I don't translate ereignis because there is no word for it in English. I have got one idea, but I haven't. I have to think more about it now. But ereignis is a realm. And that's what he explicitly says. Anyone who can read this in the contributions. Ereignis is the realm, and actually also in the talk on identity and difference. Heidegger says ereignis is the realm where being and human being encounter each other. And in this epoch, the fate or the sending or the way in which being unfolds is Gestell. So the way in which human beings and being actually encounter each other is through Technics, is in technology. And that's the ereignis itself. But what technology doesn't see is that the ereignis always also withdraws. So in the minute of trying to corroborate and fully control, there's already a withdrawal and a turning happening, which is not dialectical or anything of the sort, but it's something. It's to do with illusion. Not illusion, but elude with an E.
Oh, right.
It's eluding something. There's an evolvement that has to do with, as this shows itself, it can only show itself because there's already a turning. So Heidegger can see Gestell, to stay with Heidegger, only because it's already shifting. There's already something else occurring in the encounter between the human being and being. That is to do. So ereignis is described by him specifically as that which, as it arrives, withdraws.
Would that mean that whatever is understood under Technics today is...
Yeah, go on.
Sorry?
Yeah, go on.
Whatever is understood as Technics today is at the precipice of being overcome, or maybe more Heideggerian, verwunden.
Gotten over. Yeah, overturned.
Overturned.
So it's... When you said there's a potential event that's coming, that's metaphysical language, right? So, but this is probably
it's already happening. We're right here.
But this is probably how, say, proponents of transhumanism, etc., would describe this, which is why you put it in. This is why you say the potential event that could come. So it's a potentiality.
I'm citing their worldview.
Yeah, exactly. So, But that's kindergarten metaphysics, right? There's a potential event that's coming. First of all, the potentia is in the past. It's in the logical past. It's not in the logical future. That's just Aristotle 101, as they would say in America. And this is by the way this reversal, that you see with Nick Land and others, that something causing this from the future and doing something to us now. That aside. So it's what it betrays, what this shows, is a very simplistic metaphysical understanding of the world, which does not even begin to grasp the so-called complexity of the so-called system. So to imagine the one singularity is actually just that. It's an impasse of the imagination that tries to make sense of the weird teetering out of what would we call this, of the realm of technics and what it does to our way of trying to make sense. So it gives itself an anchor, right? And when this comes,
right.
then this will. So
this will all make sense then, right?
And it's funny, of course, because to some it's dystopian and utopian, and it's the same story. So the utopia and dystopia are not the same, but they're always they come from the same realm. But it's ultimately, whenever you hear something, and this is I'm at pains of trying to get this across to people, is anything that gives you too many images, that is very effective to the imaginary capacity that we have, you're already, I think, lost, because then you don't begin to think. And anything that you can immediately understand through images, that's I think one of the ways in which Technics, through ideology in the way we described before, works.
All right. I'd say that concludes our bit on Technics, and we will move on to the next topic.